Talking points. The big talking point is India now taking a firm stand on the Gaza issue, sending aid to Gaza, while at the same time expressing solidarity with Israel. Has India struck the right balance? That's the question that we are going to raise tonight. Also, a legend of Indian cricket, the one and only Bishan Singh Bedi. We will be remembering him and his legacy tonight. Ramachandra Guha and his biographer Suresh Menon will join me and tell us why Mr. Bedi was a truly iconic figure. But first, the 9 headlines at 9. Israel launches a limited ground operation into the Gaza Strip, raids aimed at searching for hostages and targeting Hamas. Indian medical aid reaches southern Gaza. Prime Minister Modi rings up Jordanian king as efforts intensify to try and de-escalate the conflict. Hijab row reignites in Karnataka. Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah government allows hijab inside examination centers. Decision triggers a row with Hindu groups once again threatening to hit the streets. Delhi faces possible air pollution in the days ahead. AQI deteriorates to very poor. It's not even winter, but overall air quality is below normal. Death of Wagh Bakri tea tycoon Parag Desai in a road accident sparks of debate over stray dogs in residential areas. Desai dies of brain hemorrhage after a fall. He was chased by stray dogs. Government cracks down on errant coaching centers. Penalties of 1 lakh rupees imposed on 3 IAS coaching institutes for misleading and deceptive claims. Big names like Unacademy, Byju's IAS, Drishti IAS also under the scanner. Bloodbath on D Street. Nifty and Sensex plunge around 1.3% each. Losses extend for the 4th straight session as tensions in West Asia show no sign of abating. Cyclone Tej brews over the Arabian Sea, expected to transform into a very severe cyclonic storm before noon on Sunday. IMD department issues an alert. And cricket legend, the one and only former Indian captain Bishan Singh Bedi passes away at the age of 77. He represented India in 67 tests, was for a long time India's highest wicket taker. But tonight, first a look at all the top developments from the Israel-Hamas war that has entered day 17. Gaza's health ministry has said over 400 Palestinians have been killed in over the past 24 hours in Israel's ongoing bombing campaign, making it the deadliest period since airstrikes began on 7th October. So far, at least 5,087 Palestinians have been killed. Israel's military said on Monday that its ground forces mounted limited raids into Gaza. Tel Aviv says airstrikes also targeted Palestinian militants assembling to repulse any wider Israeli invasion. The indications are Israeli defense forces are getting ready for the next stage of an escalating war. Israeli forces have confirmed that 222 people have been taken hostages by Hamas in the October 7th cross-border terror attack. Israel has released fresh footage from the Hamas attacks, revealing the true horror of that attack. After a first convoy of 20 trucks, a second convoy of 14 trucks entered Gaza with humanitarian aid. The trucks entered through Rafah crossing from the Egyptian side to the Gaza Strip. The UN says the people of Gaza need a commitment for much more aid. Among the aid is trucks that have been given by the Indian government that is providing also relief material. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Jordan's King Abdullah amid the Israel-Hamas conflict. The two leaders have shared concerns regarding terrorism, violence and the loss of civilian lives. Now, with the border opening up from the Egyptian side to Gaza, the focus also has shifted to humanitarian aid, the desperate need for medicine, food and other necessities. India too has joined in this humanitarian aid effort. Nearly 6.5 tons of medical aid and 32 tons of disaster material have been sent to Palestine, which will reach the country via Egypt. Is India therefore now looking to reach out to the Palestinian people after criticism early on that it wasn't doing enough. It's tonight's top story.
Gaza is counting its dead and reeling under a massive humanitarian crisis. And India is leading the global efforts to send aid to the crisis zone. Days after Prime Minister Modi spoke to Palestinian Authority President Mohammed Abbas and condoled civilian deaths in Gaza hospital attack, India has sent plane load of aid to war-torn Gaza. An IAF C-17 flight carrying around 6.5 tons of medical aid and 32 tons of disaster relief material for the people of Palestine on Sunday departed for Al Arish Airport in Egypt. The aid is being sent to Palestine via the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza, which was opened on Saturday. Former Vice President of India, Hamid Ansari, said the relief aid by India to Gaza should have been sent earlier. The ongoing Palestine-Israel conflict has resulted in the tragic loss of more than 5,600 lives on both sides. Hundreds of thousands of Gazans have been displaced since Israel began carrying out a constant bombardment of the Gaza Strip in response to the October 7th attack by Hamas fighters, which killed around 1,400 Israelis. After days of diplomatic wrangling over conditions for delivering the relief, the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and Gaza has been opened up to let desperately needed aid flow into Gaza Strip. After a convoy including 28 trucks carrying medicines, food supplies, water tanks and tents was sent on Saturday, the second aid convoy of 15 trucks destined for desperate Palestinian civilians reached Gaza on Sunday. Israel's constant bombardment of Gaza, a 45-kilometer-long enclave, in retaliation to the Hamas attack, has only worsened conditions for Gazans living there under a blockade by Israel and Egypt since Hamas took control in 2007. With Gaurav Sawant in Tel Aviv, Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining me at this moment is Adnan Abu Al-Haija, the Palestinian ambassador to India. Appreciate you joining us, Mr. Al-Haija. India sending humanitarian aid to Palestine over the weekend, plane load of medical supplies, other material to Gaza. Is this something that you believe will now contribute to the growing humanitarian crisis in Gaza? And do you appreciate that the Modi government has now reached out to the people of Palestine?
For sure, we appreciate what Mr. Modi government has done. And I think the Palestinian people are in need for a humanitarian aid. We are always looking for India, and we ask more, let me say, not only for humanitarian aid, as long as also we are looking for political attitudes, and we are looking for India to cooperate with other countries to break down the siege of have been done for 16 days of the Israelis. The normal supplier thing to the Gaza Strip before the 7th of October, hundreds of trucks used to enter Gaza at that time. For 16 days up to now, there is only 20 trucks has entered Gaza, and most of it, it's medicine. We need fuel for the hospital, fuel for the hospitals, and food for the people, electricity, oxygen for the patient. And as you know, all humanitarian aids.
Mr. Ambassador, I realize that this is a very small part of what Palestinians need, but you said just now India needs to play a part in lifting the siege in Gaza. You actually want India to find a political solution? Do you actually think the Indian government can contribute to lifting the siege in Gaza? Does that have to be done by the Western world, which has far greater clout with Israel, which is backing Israel all the way? What role can India play here?
No, not India only, but India is a very important country and it has very strong relation with many other countries all around the world. India with the international community, European or Russia, China, the United States or Arab countries, they have to cooperate and make a real pressure at the Israelis, because what's going on, it's war crimes. It can't be continued like that. 2.2 of our people are living in an open prison. Before the 7th of October, the poverty in Gaza Strip was 70%. So you can imagine what is the situation with that killing, with that destruction, with that ethnic cleansing from North Gaza to South Gaza, with the genocide of the killing of that people. You know, up to now, they have killed, who are registered from the health ministry, 4,800 people, and registered more than 1,300 under the debris of the building. So they altogether are more than 6,000. But people have been killed and 16,000 has been injured.
But Mr. Ambassador, sir, with due regard, while the siege you may want the siege to be lifted from Gaza, we also need to see Hamas being condemned, the hostages' safety being guaranteed, and those responsible for the killing of innocent Israeli civilians being prosecuted. The fact is, it's one thing to provide humanitarian aid, but what about the Palestinian community, the Arab world? Who is going to put pressure on Hamas to ensure that they are accountable for their crimes, that they ensure that the hostages are returned safely? That should be the first step, sir.
Let me say, Hamas is not the Palestinian people. And these crimes are not affecting Hamas organization. It's affect the Palestinian people themselves. Mm-hmm. So the reaction can't be like that. If they want to fight, let them fight Hamas, but not making war crimes against the Palestinian people. It's kind of genocide against the Palestinian people.
So what about the hostages?
Right. Secondly, in this occupation, there is no Hamas. There is no crimes. There is no any of that. The main problem is the occupation. This is not the first war, not the second, not the third. Hope they will find a political solution, peaceful solution to the Palestinian cause, and we are looking to see our children wake up in the morning with the bird voice, not on the bomb voice. So in the occupation, there is no Hamas, there is no any armed people except the government gun.
But Mr. Ambassador, let's turn to India's role. What role are you actually hoping that India plays? Do you want India to play some kind of a mediator between Israel and Palestine? The Prime Minister has spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel. He's spoken to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. What role are you looking India to play? A mediator, or simply one in a group of nations who can put pressure on both sides to de-escalate? Or the Israelis to de-escalate?
Yes, we would like, yes. And President Abbas, I'm talking in his name, he is ready for the peace solution. Mm-hmm. We are ready as a Palestinian, right? Mm-hmm. This Israeli government refused to meet President Mahmoud Abbas since 2014. Mm-hmm. He did not meet. They said, we don't find a partner of peace. we did not find a partner of peace. This extreme government, they don't want to any peace process. They want the land and peace at the same time. Because of that, we say that they are looking to evacuate people from Gaza Strip and from West Bank to Jordan and Egypt. This is what they are planning. And it's easy, to know it's not a new thing from Gaza. Netanyahu has discussed that with the ex-president of Egypt, Mr. Hosni Mubarak. When he mentioned that we can make 10 cities for them in Sinai.
You're saying
Hosni Mubarak said, forget.
No, you're saying the Israelis want all Palestinians to be evacuated out of Gaza, but I ask you again, will you therefore accept that Hamas needs to be eliminated? Will you accept that Hamas needs to hand over hostages? Will you accept that Hamas is the one that escalated this round of the conflict? Will you accept and therefore support an attack on Hamas and see it as a terrorist group, sir?
No, I don't attack. I don't support the Israelis. I don't support the occupation. Occupation should be ended.
Sir,
that's it. The killing of the Palestinian. Do you know from the beginning?
Sir, you're not answering my question. Do you agree that Hamas also has to be eliminated? It's one thing, Israeli occupation, yes, that is a debate that must also be on the table. But do you agree that Hamas has to be, their leadership has to pay for what has happened?
Hamas is part of the Palestinian people, right? In the occupation, there won't be Hamas. Hamas will be ended as long as the occupation is not there. This extreme government, by the way, since it has been formed end of September, from the beginning of this year till 7th of September, of October, they have killed 260 people in West Bank. From 7th of October till now, they have killed 93 people in West Bank. They are killing the people, confiscating land. Their settlers, armed settlers, their militia are killing the Palestinian people everywhere, burning their homes, uprooting their trees, defended by the occupied soldiers. So you have not only to talk about Hamas, talk about those criminals of the occupied forces and their militias, the settlers.
Let me leave it there, Adnan. You've given us your position. You appreciate what the Modi government has done, but you expect now the Israelis to end what you're saying, the siege of Gaza. I appreciate you joining us at this moment. Let's raise the big questions. Does Gaza aid reassure the Arab world? Let's look at India's position closely. India-Israel ties, do they end up unnerving the Arab world? Has the Modi government struck the right balance now? What role should India be playing going ahead? Joining me now, Dr. Wily is senior journalist who's been tracking West Asia for years. Kanwal Sibal, former foreign secretary, is with us. And K.C. Singh, former secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. Let me come to you, Kanwal Sibal, first. Do you believe that the Modi government has struck a balance between expressing solidarity with Israel and now giving aid to the Palestinians? Or are we in danger in this diplomatic tightrope walk of falling off the rope?
I don't think so. We have expressed solidarity with Israel on the terrorism issue. And we have expressed solidarity with the Palestinians because there is the larger question of a two-state solution, Palestinian rights, and the brutalization of the Palestinians all these decades, and what is happening on the West Bank, the expansion of settlements, and of course, the violence by the settlers, by the extreme right-wing Israelis. So I don't think the two are contradictory to each other, because we don't accept terrorism, and we also have reservations about the disproportionate action by Israel currently to destroy large swaths of Gaza and force evacuation of 1.5 million people from the north of Gaza to the south, with all the humanitarian consequences that follow. And therefore, Prime Minister Modi and government have taken the step to channel humanitarian aid to Palestine, which is sorely needed, but this is a drop in the ocean. As was rightly said by the ambassador, before this thing erupted, there were 400 or 500 trucks going daily through Rafah. And now if you have 20 or 30 trucks going for 1.5 million people who are evacuated and otherwise who are suffering because of shortage because of end of water supplies and everything else, food, fuel, this is not going to meet the situation. But yes, it is a gesture government of India has made. Finally, with regard to balancing, every country is trying to balance in a different way. The United States also, while fully supporting Israel, has cautioned Israel about not flying into a rage and committing the mistakes the United States did after 9/11, and also playing their role in facilitating the opening of the Gaza, of the Rafah border. Other countries also have their own way of balancing the situation, supporting Israel, but at the same time supporting the Palestinian cause. I think we have done what we ought to do in this current situation. And it's not a question of balancing. It is actually doing the right thing by way of both sides.
Right.
On one side, support them against this terrible terrorist attack. And I'm very surprised that the ambassador of Palestine absolutely refuses to acknowledge that Hamas has done a terror attack. In fact, Hamas has been governing this territory. It has popular support. It may have declined over the years, but it has popular support. You can't totally distinguish between Hamas pretending there's a foreign kind of a occupation of the West of the
Right.
Of,
I get your point, but you're saying we've done the right thing. KC Singh, have we done the right thing, or is this a diplomatic tightrope walk? We started by expressing solidarity. The Prime Minister spoke to Benjamin Netanyahu. There were some reports that the Arab world wanted India to do more in terms of focusing on the plight of the Palestinian people who are being bombed. Do you believe, therefore, there's been a course correction?
Rajdeep, we discussed it on your program the day it began on October 7. And I was saying that day that Prime Minister's statement was giving it a one-sided slant and seemed to be a deviation from the traditional Indian position. Now, if the Ministry of External Affairs had come out immediately after that with their statement, when they took a number of days to come out with that statement, to balance it and say that there are two sides to it, we won't be asking these questions.
No, but with due regard, Mr. KC Singh, let's be fair. Prime Minister Modi on the first day was responding to a horrific terror attack. Now, you don't expect him to then balance it out with Palestinian rights on day one itself.
Well, the Chinese did it. The others did it. Yes, you can come out. No, I'm saying Prime Minister could have said what he said, but the Ministry of External Affairs didn't need to remain silent for 4, 5, 6 days after that. That is why the questions were raised. Has there been a shift in India's stand? Then once the Ministry of External Affairs statement came, they've been rectifying it, and we've gone back to more or less the old position. And I'm very glad that the humanitarian assistance has gone today. But this is not the end of the story, because siege is not about to end. Israelis are making exploratory forays. They've been held back by the Americans till now because there are three problems in this. The problems are that, and I think President Biden going there, he summed it up. He, basically backed the Israelis very strongly, but he also was simultaneously saying that I understand your anger, but don't let your anger consume you. He says that's the mistake the Americans made after 9/11. And they paid with lives in Afghanistan, Iraq, and really didn't achieve anything. So what he's telling is right. What the Americans are doing are three things. They're trying to get the civilians out of harm's way. And that's why they held the Israelis back. So almost 600,000 people out of 1.4 million in northern Gaza have moved to southern Gaza. Then they got the southern route opened so that the humanitarian assistance coming there, the people will gravitate there. So create an area where civilians gravitate towards. And then you open the ground because they realize Americans ultimately can't stop Israel from going in. Because Israel has said elimination of Hamas is their absolute goal. Now, the mistake with that is that you can eliminate some of the leaders. The top leaders are sitting in Qatar. But you will radicalize the youth further because Hamas is not a group of people. It's a movement. And a movement does not get killed like, Taliban are back in Afghanistan. The Americans went to finish them. So therefore, that is what and then the third problem is the northern front. So the Americans have brought in their navy. They're putting pressure to see that Hezbollah doesn't jump in. And as long as it remains a single, they'll probably give some time to Israel to go in and try getting the hostages out. In the meanwhile, we just seen 2 hostages being given up by Hamas. They will not give up more hostages because that's their human shield.
Can I just stop you for a moment? That hostage question is critical, Dr. Wael Awad, because even when I asked this to the Palestinian ambassador, he wasn't willing to give a commitment on what happens to the hostages. And therefore, while India is out there at the moment providing humanitarian aid, the Palestinians' moral high ground will not exist if the hostages are killed. If the hostages are killed, including some American citizens, that will also lead to anger and outrage again. So do you believe that that is the very minimal that will have to be done to try and de-escalate this conflict?
Well, the minimum can be done at the moment, the cessation of all hostilities, because there is already more than 14 of the hostages have died because of the Israeli bombardment. And in fact, Hamas have also offered 3 out of no conditions, more hostages to release, but they were refused by the Israeli government. So I don't see the hostages issue is seriously avoiding our
No, but Dr. Awad, there are 222 hostages according to the Israeli Defense Force at the moment with Hamas. Unless they are released, even in batches, how do you then expect countries like India to play a role in promoting Palestinian interests? For a large part of the world, there is no distinction between Palestine and Hamas.
Rajdeep, I think we must all understand that India is not a colonized society culture. India is a civilized country and understand the depth of the problem in Palestine after I'm listening to 2 distinguished guests at your panel, and I understand the position of India consistently have been supporting justice and freedom for the Palestinian, a 2-state solution. It's nothing new to that. What I'm trying to say here, what for the last 75 years, we have been seeing Israel attacking the Palestinians, uprooting their villages, kicked out 750,000 Palestinians in 1948, and have taken all their territories. Now, the Palestinians, what they have done, they have changed the paradigm of the game. They have twisted. This time they attacked inside their occupied territories inside Israel. So they have taken hostages, and there are 10,000 hostages of Palestinians inside Israel jail, ravishing there. There are people who, according to Human Rights Watch, according to RISC, ask any agency in the world, they tell you there are more than 2,000 people there. For decades they are there. There is no law why they have been detained. No advocate can go. Every Palestinian will tell you. I'm not here to defend Hamas or defend anybody. I'm just trying to say here that hostages have been used in wars because they wanted to exchange. They have been doing it.
Right.
Israel attacked Hamas, attacked Gaza Strip 5 times. This is the 6th time. It's nothing new. I mean, I covered the region extensively. I interviewed Arafat. I interviewed Mahmoud Abbas. I asked them when Netanyahu was in power. They never expected anything from him. Rabin, Prime Minister of Israel, was killed because he killed the Oslo Agreement, Netanyahu, and his right-wing supporter killed Rabin. His wife, widower of Rabin, she said it on TV of the Israelis. How you want to tell me that this kind of government is seriously willing to have a peace with the Palestinians?
Okay.
They are obliterating Palestine. Even your aid or rest of the world aid will not reach because there will be no Palestinian left to survive on the genocide in a concentration camp they have created for them.
You know, Kawal Sibal, I've been playing through the show also over the years how India's stand has changed. When Jawaharlal Nehru, and I'll look at that, when Jawaharlal Nehru was Prime Minister of India, he was very clear that India needed to stand by Palestine. It became a human rights issue. It was seen in a way as one of the fallouts of colonialism. The RSS and the BJP over the years stood by Israel. By 1992, we have Narasimha Rao becoming Prime Minister. India recognizes Israel. Before that, Indira Gandhi, very close to Arafat. India becomes the first country to officially recognize the PLO at the time. An embassy office was set up here in 1980. And now we have Prime Minister Modi, who is seen to have built a strong relationship with Mr. Netanyahu. Can India really play any kind of a mediatory role? The Prime Minister is ringing up Amman, he's ringing up other Arab capitals. On the Arab street, does India carry any weight anymore? Or is there a fear that we have to balance the concerns of the Arab street and the fact that we've got strong relations with Saudi Arabia and UAE with what's happening in Israel?
Look at the situation realistically. When India was fully supporting the PLO and Yasser Arafat, were we able to resolve the Palestinian question? Not at all. In fact, Arafat chose to go to the West and sign the Oslo Accords and left out altogether the non-aligned movement. We put all his eggs in the Western basket. Point is that India alone cannot do anything very much because big powers are involved. The United Nations, look at the helplessness of the United Nations, look at the helplessness of the UN Secretary General. What has happened to him? He's standing at the Rafah border, over supervising the flow of trucks into Gaza. Is this the role of the UN Secretary General? The United States is a very critical player, even though their power has diminished in this region. They're being challenged by Russia as well as China even more so. These are the countries, the powers that have to play a significant, important, critical role in bringing the two sides together. The United States has walked away from the two-state solution. They opened their embassy in Jerusalem. They seized all assistance to the Palestinian Authority. And when it comes to the Arab world, look, Saudi, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan, they have recognized Israel. Saudi Arabia was on the point of recognizing Israel. We had ITU2, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor. So what role has the principal Arab states, the Gulf states, played in the Palestinian question? So why the burden on India when the Arab countries themselves were very keen to normalize with Israel?
Good point, Mr. Sibal, which I want to take to you, KC Singh, because you've served in the area. The Arab world seems at least privately split. Publicly, they may all have united today on the Palestinian issue. Privately, there are divisions between the more moderate states and the more radicalized states. How does India navigate what is a very difficult situation? Should India just stay out and keep providing humanitarian aid but do little beyond that at the moment? Is that the best way out?
No, you keep your channels open to both sides. Prime Ministers today, I believe, spoken to King Abdullah. So we have a certain degree of credibility in the region. But yes, Mr. Sibal is absolutely correct that we don't have the ability to play the role of an active peacemaker. And secondly, do remember that in 1967, the Arab-Israeli war, that is when Israel occupied all this area, West Bank and so on and so forth, there was no peace possible till 1973. Even Kissinger didn't step in. Only when the Egyptians were able to cross the bar-left line and inflict some damage on Israel, then Kissinger realized that when two guys are fighting, there's a point at which you cannot intervene. Israel will get their revenge. At this moment, they are not going to listen. At best, the Americans can calibrate it. They can delay them. They can get the civilians out of the way. They can keep Hezbollah out so that it doesn't spin out of control. They can threaten Iran that Iran doesn't actively come in. They can allow Israel to bomb the airports of Syria so that military help doesn't come in. So they're isolating and saving the civilians. But they will give probably Israel 1 or 2 weeks to go in and try to kill as many so-called Hamas leaders as they can. But then after that, even America cannot support them because the civilians start getting killed and too much blood is spilled. Then they'll be able to reel them back. But at the moment, I think even the conservative Arab countries would like to get rid of Hamas. So they would like Israelis to go in and at least decapitate them.
Can I therefore take that to Dr. Awad in conclusion? Do you believe that the Arab world wants Hamas to be strengthened? Is there a distinction between leadership and the Arab street? Leaderships are skeptical or even fearful of Hamas. The Arab street is treating them as liberators. Is that the worry also?
It's not a worry because every Palestinian who is defending his land, he has the right according to UN Charter. That is for sure. But
he does not have the right to kill innocent Israeli civilians in the process.
No. Any civilian kills, any killing of a human being. Remember, Genesis said, if you cannot create, you cannot kill. Let us be more practical on this. What I'm trying to say is, Rajdeep, I think you should put in the highlight in your next program, it is not Hamas which they are after. It is Hezbollah in Lebanon. It is Iran which they are after. The American is finding their warships in the Mediterranean. They are already filled islands in Greece with the warships. Israel having F-16, F-15, F-35. They are bombing, they are killing. They wanted to provoke the Street of the Arab so they can pressurize their government to participate in a war where Israel can expand and create a greater Israel from Euphrates to Nile. Remember, if you go to the Knesset of the Israelis, you will see at the gate of the Knesset, they have said the border of Israel is from Euphrates to Nile. So if that is the aim and objective, it's become a fight of extensionists, either we or you.
Okay.
Unless and until we have a two-state solution, there is no question of peace in the Middle East.
Okay, let me leave it there. I appreciate all my guests joining us on our top talking point. It is a tough situation which India in particular will have to navigate with caution in the weeks ahead. Kamal Sibal, KC Singh, Wily, appreciate you joining me here on the news today. Let me take a break. When we return, I'm turning to my other talking point tonight. He was a true cricket legend. The one and only Bishan Singh Bedi has passed away at the age of 77. What made him such an iconic figure in Indian cricket and indeed public life? Ramachandra Guha and Suresh Menon will join me on the other side. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest Be Sustainable Change, a B&P Group company.
Colors by Cola makes you wish everything was as vibrant. Colors by Cola makes you wish everything was as vibrant.
Welcome back to another of our top stories. India lost one of its true cricketing legends earlier today. Regarded as one of the finest spinners to have ever played the game, Bishan Singh Bedi was Indian cricket captain, but also beyond the boundary was an iconic figure for many. His bowling was hailed as poetry in motion. His words were always looked at with great interest. Tonight, we want to pay a special tribute to him. First, take a look at the life and times of Bishan Singh Bedi.
Graceful, artistic and pure. Bishan Singh Bedi was an embodiment of all those characteristics. He perfected the art of spin bowling and was a vital cog of the spin quartet that dominated world cricket back in the 70s.
And he's beaten bowled, he's out this time, stumped I'd say.
Those who saw him play hailed his bowling as poetry in motion.
And you could see that ball spin, it really did spin. What a remarkable...
In many ways, he was the architect of the 1983 World Cup winning campaign. It was under his chairmanship that the Indian team captured the imagination of the world. Even after he retired, his forthright and blunt views kept him in the spotlight. His passing away has stunned the cricketing world. Anil Kumble led the tributes, saying that Bishan Singh Bedi was someone who always had his back and who genuinely shared his thoughts on the game. Calling him one of the greats of the game, VVS Lakshman said that Bishanji was an inspiration for spinners. Mohammad Azharuddin also paid homage to him as he sent his condolences to Bishanji's family. Cricket has lost one of the game's greatest. Cricket will miss one of its legends. But the game is also poorer today as Bishan Singh Bedi leaves us mortals for his heavenly abode.
What made Bishan Singh Bedi such an iconic figure? Joining me now are two special guests who knew him intimately. Ramchandra Gua, historian, writer, public intellectual and cricket addict, and Suresh Menon, author of a fine book, Bishan Portrait of a Cricketer. Appreciate both of you joining us. Let me turn to you, Dr. Gua, first. Ram, what do you think made Bishan Singh Bedi so special?
So, there were many aspects to both his cricket and his personality. First, he was a truly great spin bowler, a part of that epic quartet which led India to its first victories overseas. Secondly, he was an inspirational leader. He made Delhi and North Zone a force to reckon with in cricket. And here we are, Suresh and I from Bangalore, speaking to you, Rajdeep, from Bombay. And it's Karnataka and Delhi that successfully challenged Bombay's hegemony and made Indian cricket truly, you could say, national in its catchment area. He was very good at working with young people. You know, with, for example, Sunil Joshi, Murli Karthik, Anil Kumble, many younger spinners were mentored and nurtured by him. Finally, he was a person of fierce independence of character. His spine was ramrod straight. He was absolutely uncompromising with cronyism, with corruption, with nepotism. So, as he was one of India's greatest ever cricketers, but above all, I think he was an extraordinarily fine, courageous, and principled human being. Anyone who came in contact with him became a better person, which is very rare for a superstar. You wouldn't say it. You know, you'd admire an actor for the great films he's acted in. You'd admire a batsman for the hundreds he scored. But normally famous celebrities can be mean, vicious, spiteful, petty. Bishan was none of the above, and he was a truly great cricketer too.
You know, in a way, Suresh Menon, taking off from what Ram Gua said, Bishan Singh Bedi's impact was not just on what he did on the field, but also what he did off it. A kind of rebel without a pause, some would say, but an anti-establishment hero who actually challenged the Indian Cricket Board and fought for players' rights, which is why today players across the board are lavishing such huge praise on what Bishan Singh Bedi really contributed to the game. Is that how he should be recognized today, not just for what he achieved on the field, but what he meant to Indian cricket off it?
I think so. I think he was not just a rebel without a cause, which makes it sound a bit...
No, rebel. I said rebel without a pause.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that correct. Yes, he was a rebel without a pause. And I think what he did for Indian cricket and the strength he gave Indian cricket, the strength he gave the individual cricketer is very important. I'll tell you an interesting story by Madan Lal, told me many years ago. Madan says that he was such a heroic figure. He was such a great skipper that it wasn't just the bowling or the batting or the fielding that in which we were involved. If we went to a restaurant, we would wait and watch and see which fork Bishan took, or which knife, or which spoon, and we followed. So he was not only responsible for us as cricketers, he was also responsible for our growth as human beings, as civilized human beings. And this has been said only about one captain before, and that was Sir Frank Worrell of the West Indies. His bowlers would say something similar in the 60s when he was captain.
You know, in a way, Ram Gua, because today's generation often forgets that there was an India before the Virat Kohli generation, before even the Sachin Tendulkar generation. 70s there was an asymmetry of power between cricketers and the board. And Bishan Bedi challenged in a way that dominance at huge personal cost. I mean, he took on the English cricket establishment on the Vaseline issue and was denied a testimonial, takes on the Indian Cricket Board and they don't give him, he was even denied a pension for a while. Do you believe that in a way is one of his lasting contributions, that if today Indian cricketers have more rights, it is because there were the torchbearers like Bishan Bedi?
Without question. I think on the question of rights, being paid properly, being treated with respect, not being treated as servants of the board, all of that But Bishan also had a life outside cricket. I've talked of his character. He's a person of great principle and integrity, but also of great compassion and humanity. Tiger Pataudi once said of Bishan that he is the only cricketer who spends more on himself than others spend on him. So he would take a friend out for dinner and the friend may be poorer than him or less famous, but no question. Also, he had interests outside cricket. He was interested in literature, in music, in culture. He had a wonderful sense of humor, compassion, his kindness towards the young. I mean, Rajdeep, you knew him. You were fortunate to know him from when you were a little boy because your father was his teammate. And Suresh and I got to know him. I got to know him as a teenager. Suresh was around the same time. So his compassion, his warmth, his friendship, his curiosity about other people, his lack of sexism, his lack of any sense of caste or religious or gender distinction. He was and he was a fabulous bowler. I mean, he was poetry. I mean, you tweeted, Rajdeep, Jim Laker's famous tribute that what is my idea of paradise? Paradise, lords in the sunshine with rail involved bowling from one end and Bishan Bedi from the other. I might have Wasim Akram actually from rail involved end, but he was an extraordinarily gifted bowler. But I think he was a person in the round. Mm-hmm. He was not only about success, achievement, money, branding, sponsorship. So in that sense, he was a very distinctive human being. And I think that we should celebrate him for all of that. And I think so much of that is missing in the kind of boilerplate testimonials that you will find on Twitter from board officials, former cricketers. The human and moral lessons that Bishan embodied. For anyone who was fortunate to have known him or played under him, as Suresh says, with Madan Lal, or to have been a family friend like you, I mean, it was just quite extraordinary, the love and the compassion and the humanity that he exuded with him.
Suresh, there are lots of stories about Bishan Bedi. The one that I recall is in an article that he wrote, and you may even have had it in your biography, about how during the 84 anti-Sikh riots, he was advised to leave the country, and because the person advising him was a senior official in the president's house, Gyani Zail Singh was then president, I.S. Bindra advised him. He said, no way, this is my country, I'm going to stay here. So in a way, there was this sort of, the moment you challenged him, he would strike back with equal ferocity. Do you believe in some way that also became a weakness, that he was never able to adjust in a way to the new age, to the age of the IPL, to the age of auctioning cricketers? He was very critical of that. Do you believe he couldn't adjust to the new world in a way?
You speak of his obstinacy. Trevor Bailey, the English cricketer and writer, once wrote a sentence about him. He said he displayed a special brand of mystical obstinacy. And for a moment, I considered using that as the title of my book, A Mystical Obstinacy. But I think Bishan is a little more than his anecdotes. I think he's a little more than his obstinacy. In fact, I think what often went wrong was that he tended to package his good intentions in either poor timing or unfortunate language. But it came from a place of purity. It came from a place of care. And I think that is the important thing. You might not, I personally, for example, have not agreed with every single thing that Bishan has said or done. And we've been close friends for many years. But the fact that, and I knew this for a fact, and everybody else who was around him knew this, that it didn't come from a place other than a place of purity and a place of concern for the cricket. His great boss was cricket, not the administrators, not the officials, not those who thought that cricket was a good ride towards wealth and fame and fortune. No, he thought he loved cricket with a passion, and anybody who disrespected the game had to take him on.
That's because, right. He would keep saying that the words always used were, it's not cricket. And there's a reason, Rajdeep, that those words are used, because cricket is pure. There was a purity to it. But Ram Gua, how would today's generation, therefore, how should they look at, what should they learn from the Bishan Bedi legacy in an era of superstar cricketers, multi-millionaire cricketers? What could they learn, in your view, from Bishan Singh Bedi and take the torch forward in a way?
Rajiv, I can't speak for them. I can tell you what I learned from him. To be forthright, to be courageous, and not to worry about fame and reputation, to speak the truth as you saw it, to acknowledge mistakes if you made them, to think of a life beyond your profession. He was also a person of great faith. He was deeply rooted in the Punjab. He loved the Punjabi language. He loved the Gurbani songs, music, and yet he was an Indian. He was universal. He was also extremely opposed to jingoism and chauvinism in cricket. The kind of jingoism we see among cricket crowds today, quite recently in Ahmedabad, for example, would have appalled him. So he showed you how could you be absolutely rooted in your culture. In his case, the culture of the Punjab. It is moving beyond that to India as a whole, and then embracing, the globe. So I think I cannot say what cricketers can learn from him, but I can say that his life was exemplary, not just for cricketers, but for any kind of professional. How to practice your craft seriously, rigorously, hopefully with success, but always with honor and self-respect.
Well, beautifully put, Ram, because we're getting a lot of comments from across the border. Pakistanis lavishing huge praise on Bishan Singh Bedi and his contribution and the manner in which he struck friendships across the border and therefore became this larger-than-life figure. Truly, I will just leave you with one thought, that every time I'd do a TV program and he was watching, he would often send me WhatsApp messages telling me to XXX socket to the politicians. So he was determined that he wanted the politicians to be put in the dock. And once in a match that was to be played between journalists and politicians, he insisted to play with the journalists, saying he wrote on the game, but he would never be with politicians because he felt a number of them were far too corrupt. That was Bishan Singh Bedi for you.
Let me add one postscript, Rajdeep.
Yes.
I mean, he had the same attitude to politicians in the cricket board.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. I didn't catch your last word, Ram.
Yeah. He had the same attitude towards politicians in the cricket board as well.
That's right. And yes, Suresh, 30 seconds.
I was just going to say that we were talking earlier about lessons one learned from Bishan, and I think just by being himself, he taught us a whole lot of lessons, and some of that was explained by Ram just now. But also, I think it was a fact that playing cricket was a joy for him. It wasn't. Right. It never torture, and he brought that element of joy into the game. And I think that's an important lesson that today's cricketers need to learn.
I'm sure in a way the torch will be passed from one generation to another. For my generation growing up, Bishan Singh Bedi was truly an iconic figure, and he will be much missed, not just for his contributions on the field, but for the message that he gave beyond it. It's not cricket. Thank you very much, Ram Gua and Suresh Menon, for joining me. I want to tell you that Bishan Singh Bedi will be cremated tomorrow, 2 p.m. at the Lodi crematorium. And his life, as our guest said, was his message. The one and only Bishan Singh Bedi. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubhratri. Jai Hind, Namaskar.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a BNP Group company.
By Cola makes you wish everything was as vibrant. by Cola makes you wish everything was as vibrant.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a BNP Group company.
Colors by Cola makes you wish everything was as vibrant. Colors by Cola makes you wish everything was as vibrant.
From the rumbling Gaza frontline,
Israel is not backing off, not even an inch, not even for a minute.
to the first broadcast from the West Bank.
India Today is reporting from Palestine, from the West Bank, and the situation remains extremely tense.
From the exploding Israel-Hezbollah crossfire to the Viper's nest in Lebanon.
You can see tracers going. Continuous fire, continue.
We report the Israel-Hamas war firsthand.
Israel is regularly bombarding South Lebanon.
India's most watched war reporters on India Today.
So sorry.
चुनाव में बदल गई है खूब हो न हो
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a BNP Group company.
Extra taste from Indian Oil. Cello, रिश्ता जिंदगी भर का.
You're watching our breaking news at the moment because there is a big story about to break in the World Cup 2023. That's right. Afghanistan is one run away from beating Pakistan in the World Cup. The same Afghanistan team that defeated England could now be proving to be the giant killers of this tournament. They're on verge of defeating Pakistan. The two teams are level and they are in a position now to thrash Pakistan by 8 wickets. 282 was the target, and Afghanistan is set to make it for the loss of only 1 wicket, and the Afghans have won. Afghanistan has defeated Pakistan in a big World Cup upset. One of the biggest stories of the World Cup is building there. Afghanistan now with their second victory of this World Cup, lifted up the bottom of the table, having defeated England last weekend. They've now defeated Pakistan. That makes Pakistan's chances of entering the semi-finals very remote, and it gives the Afghans another big victory, a big scalp that they've managed to claim, this time by thrashing Pakistan by 8 wickets. A huge day for Afghanistan cricket. Arguably one of the biggest upsets of this World Cup that has already seen two major upsets, South Africa losing to Netherlands and England losing to Afghans. But the Afghans, led by Rahmatullah Gurbaz and Ibrahim Zardan, have scored one of the biggest upsets of the 2023 World Cup, defeating Pakistan. Pakistan, who has already lost to India and Australia, now have 3 defeats in their first 5 games, and it will lead a mighty effort. They cannot afford now to lose a single game, otherwise they are out of the World Cup. So on the verge of elimination, Pakistan, after losing to Afghanistan. Nikhil Naz is joining me. Nikhil, is this in a way Afghanistan cricket coming of age, defeating England, the holders, now defeating their neighbours Pakistan?
Well, Rajdeep, I'm having a bit of a trouble hearing your exact question, but I'm guessing you're talking about, is this one of the biggest wins for Afghanistan? It certainly will count, amongst the biggest. And what a weekend it's been for the Afghanistan team. Remember, they've played 2 World Cups before this and only had 1 win to show in that. And that too came in the 2015 edition versus Scotland. They went the entire 2019 World Cup without a single win. And then guess what? They often say when it rains, it pours. And that's exactly what it's happened for Afghanistan team. They didn't really start this tournament off very well, but then got that 1 victory versus England after suffering a couple of losses in their first 2 games. Got that 1 victory versus England. That happened not too far away from where I'm standing at the Firoz Shah Kotla in New Delhi on a spin-friendly track, and have got another one versus Pakistan in Chennai. I'd like you to take you back and our viewers a little back, Rajdeep. This is before the World Cup had started. There was this sort of, murmurs coming from Pakistan. There was a sort of an objection that was raised from the Pakistan team in terms of the venue that were allotted to them. And Pakistan weren't too happy much before this World Cup started. As soon as the draw was announced, Pakistan wasn't too happy having drawn Afghanistan in Chennai. That is because we know the Chennai track is one that really helps the spinners. This was, by the way, the exact same strip that was used for the Australia versus India match. That was the same strip that was used for this game. And once again, it was a spin-friendly track where the Afghanistan spinners came to the fore. But I guess the maximum amount of talk will happen around the Afghanistan batting, because when they were given a target as big as Pakistan gave them, not many had given them a chance, thinking that the Pakistan bowling attack is going to come good on the day. But what the Afghanistan team has done, one, shown that, because they play a lot of T20 cricket around the globe, their batters are equipped to handle pace, and the other, it's really exposed the Pakistan bowling lineup. Yes, they've got a few fast bowlers, but if the conditions aren't conducive to them, they seldom get you a lot of wickets. This was the pitch where the Pakistani spinner should have come and got you a lot of wickets. That wasn't to be. In fact, that's not been the case for the Pakistan for the last 1 year, where the spinners haven't done really well, and the result is there for everyone to see.
Well, quite a game there for Afghanistan now. The giant killers, they've come from the Khyber Pass and they've taken over world cricket. And there's quite a story, Nikhil, in conclusion, because many of these Afghan cricketers, the likes of Mohammad Nabi, learned their cricket on the Pak-Afghan border in refugee camps all those years ago. So there was a bit of edge to these matches, and they proved almost that they're better than the Pakis. They're bigger neighbors.
Well, that's right. I just, roughly heard a bit of your question, Rajdeep, but I understand you're talking about, where they really come from. A lot of them spent a lot of time in refugee camps. That's right. What the interesting bit is, Rajdeep, we are not too far away from which was their home ground for the longest time. So Greater Noida, not too far away from our studios, is where they played most of their home games. That was their home ground. Later, they also shifted to Dehradun because they could not host any international matches at home. They had to play outside. Yet, despite the turmoil in their country, despite what's happening and not too many facilities available, yet they keep producing such talented cricketers. And that's the testament to the amount of love that the Afghans have towards cricket and the kind of raw talent that they're discovering, as the game goes along. As I pointed out, the one thing that really helps them is a lot of them play a franchise cricket. We've seen a lot of them, Rahmanullah Gurbaz, who played really well. We know he plays for Kolkata Knight Riders. Rashid Khan is a star who played for Sunrisers earlier, now with the Gujarat team. Noor, that we saw for the very first time in this tournament, also a teammate of Rashid at the Gujarat team. And Nabi has been an IPL veteran. But a lot of these players also play the Lankan Premier League. They play the Big Bash League. So they play around the world, which is why they can handle, top-level pace, top-level spin at the international level. And which is what, their bowling was never a concern. It was always their batting. Can that really chase down a big total like the one that Pakistan has set? Interestingly, if you see through the tournament, Rajdeep, they'd been getting those 270s, 280s, but they've lost to better teams. Today, that is the target that was set to them by Pakistan, and they ended up chasing.
Well, at the end of the day, this is a World Cup where India remains the only unbeaten team. And I think it shows the gulf between India and Pakistan now in cricket. Pakistan losing to Afghanistan, India crushing all opposition. We'll wait and see how that plays out, of course, in the next few weeks as we hope for a World Cup win on the 19th of November, a hat-trick of wins. But for now, I want to hand over to my colleagues Shiv Arur and Gaurav Sawant, who are reporting from Kibbutz Beri in Israel.
Hello and welcome to this very special broadcast that we get to you from southern Israel. Gaurav Sawant and I are at the Kibbutz Beri, one of the frontline kibbutzes, Gaurav, where many hostages were taken and over 100 people were actually killed. What you see around Gaurav and me here is utter destruction in this particular commune. As we arrive here on day 16, it's also a day when there's been an enormous escalation on all fronts, Gaurav.
So what you hear are a lot of artillery shells that are going off. Attack helicopters are being used even as we speak, and this kind of shows that Israel, you hear this artillery and this going off at amazing frequency here. So you have air-to-ground rockets that are being fired, F-16 fighter jets, 155mm howitzers, and Apache helicopters that are pounding Hamas bases, and that shows that targets are being softened, perhaps for an imminent ground offensive into the Gaza Strip.
Israel mounts limited Gaza ground raids. Israel tanks roll into Gaza. Hundreds of hostages held by Hamas. India Today reports from the war zone.
It's only set to escalate. It's only set to escalate.
Full-blown ground invasion next. Our top focus on India first.
The situation on ground sees a major escalation as far as the Israeli Defense Forces are concerned. Apart from their fighter jets and artillery, now Apache helicopter gunships have also been pressed into service to pulverize Hamas strongholds as far as Israel is concerned.
And the very interesting thing that Gaurav and I noticed when we reached there, or within visible distance of Gaza, is that unlike the F-16s that have been pounding Gaza all this while, they fly at a great height, Gaurav. But the use of helicopter gunships means there appears to be a confidence level within the Israeli Defense Forces that the air defense believed to be in the capability of the Hamas probably isn't there or has been destroyed in those strikes. Watch this report by Gaurav and me.
17 days into the Israel-Hamas war, Israeli Defense Forces have mounted a limited ground invasion into the Gaza Strip.
עשרות נקודות.
There is a sortie which is attacking dozens of points where terrorists are assembling, and our role is to reduce these threats. Therefore, we are exploiting all the time available to us to improve our readiness and our ability to carry out the ground maneuver. Hamas, which carried out the October 7th terror attack on Israel, has also confirmed ground operation by the IDF. According to Israeli forces, raids by tank and infantry forces were done to kill squads of terrorists who were preparing for the next stage in the war. During the night, there were raids by tank and infantry forces. In these raids, terrorists are being killed who are preparing for the next stage of the war. These raids also locate and search for anything we can get in terms of intelligence on the missing and the hostages. Israeli forces have claimed that their airstrikes focused on sites where Palestinian militants were assembling to attack any wider Israeli invasion. The Israeli army has also organized raids to search for those who have been abducted and are being kept as hostages.
2 hostages were released has actually piled on the tension and suspense over what's going to really happen, because the big question continues to be, if this is phase 1, what is phase 2 and phase 3 going to look like? Are negotiations really happening where the non-military hostages from Gaza will all be released very quickly? We don't know just yet, but in the interim at least, while that attains a semblance of clarity, Israel is not backing off, not even an inch, not even for a minute.
The limited ground operation could be a wider ground invasion of Gaza by Israeli forces.
Hezbollah.
Israel has said its war on Hamas will end only when the outfit's terror network is completely dismantled. With Shivarur in Sidrot, Bureau Report, India Today.
One of the most emotive aspects of covering this war has been interacting with the families of the hostages. Remember, over 200 hostages continue to be there in Gaza. 2 have been released, and that has only increased the anxiety and the pain of the remaining families. And you've met many of them, Gaurav.
Indeed, they're protesting. They want the government to get into action right away. They want the government to ensure that the hostages are repatriated before retribution takes place. At the same time, the families are equally keen that Hamas be punished, but they want, whether it's US President Joe Biden or the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak or Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister who's currently in Israel, they want world leaders to come together, mount pressure on Hamas and ensure that the innocent victims in their custody, more than 200 of them, are released as quickly as possible.
Free them now! 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 Free them now!
Free them now is the cry from the families and friends of nearly 200 civilians currently being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza.
This is downtown Tel Aviv, the capital of Israel, and it is completely drowned out by the sound of angry Israelis who've collected here demanding justice for the hostages who continue to be in the captivity of Hamas more than 2 weeks after the dreaded terror attack by that terrorist group from Gaza on October the 7th.
Most of those missing were kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival.
All of these people are asking for a full prisoner deal. All of the people here are extremely angry, and they're saying that the government here has not been doing enough to bring the hostages back. Many of the people here are friends, relatives, classmates, parents, siblings of those who've been kidnapped. They're all holding posters, and they're all calling for the Israeli government to instantly act.
Idan is missing since Saturday, October 7th.
and we haven't heard from him. We just had a phone call to his girlfriend on Saturday morning, and since then we don't know anything. We want answers. I think the entire world needs to give us answers.
All the world need to understand this is more than a war crime what Hamas did there. It's a crime against humanity, and all the leaders around the world need to intervene to take action.
In Jerusalem, more families of Hamas hostages hit the streets after meeting Israeli president. Among them were the parents of 23-year-old Israeli-American hostage Hirsch Goldberg-Polin. Hirsch's parents were told by witnesses of the attack that one of Hirsch's limbs was blown off by an exploding grenade.
We're asking for everybody around the world, Sarei Chutz, foreign ministers from the 30 countries where there are hostages, to scream, let in the medical care. We've talked to doctors. The doctors have said, if he gets the treatment that he needs, he has a decent chance. If he still hasn't gotten it, it's a dire situation. He needs surgery, he needs intensive antibiotics, and we're screaming to anybody who will listen, let in the medical care and bring all 200 of these people home to their families.
Hollywood star Gal Gadot has also joined to release the hostages. She's using her social media platforms to post videos of children kidnapped by Hamas. The release of 2 American hostages has given a glimmer of hope to hundreds of families, but time is running out. With Shiva Arur in Tel Aviv, Bureau Report, India Today.
Israel on day 16 of this conflict has pounded Al-Ansar Mosque at the West Bank. So this is the widening of this battle. It started with the Gaza Strip. Now it's expanded Shiv to the West Bank, and there's already the third front, which is Israel targeting the Hezbollah at the northern front.
And the airstrike took place not very far from where Gaurav was reporting just a few days ago, the first Indian journalist to report from the West Bank and Palestinian territory. The Jenin refugee camp has been in the news for years and years for what's been taking place there. But an airstrike on a mosque with terror resources hidden below it basically suggests that the beast has awoken, metaphorically speaking, and Israel is going after every little remnant of the Hamas, big or small, within territory or outside, and the Ansar Mosque attack is a reminder of that.
Amid the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, Israel opened a fresh front in its offensive. In a major escalation, Israeli forces carried out their first major airstrike in the West Bank on Sunday. Israel struck a compound beneath Al-Ansar Mosque in the West Bank's Jenin, killing at least one person. The Israeli forces said the mosque conceals terror cells of Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and terror groups have been using the mosque as a command center to plan terror attacks.
Based on specific intelligence inputs, the Israeli forces mounted an airstrike even in the West Bank, targeting the Al-Ansar Mosque, saying Hamas terrorists were not just hiding in the mosque, but were also storing weapons for an imminent attack on Israeli civilians.
And a day later, Hamas hit back at Israeli defense forces deployed in west of Jenin. The Hamas attacks were to avenge deaths of terror operatives in Israeli airstrikes in West Bank's Jenin. As the war reaches the West Bank, so far, dozens of Palestinian radials in West Bank have been killed in clashes with Israeli forces.
Israel's airstrike on the Al-Ansar Mosque in the West Bank shows that the beast has woken and it's going to go after every single asset of the Hamas. A hyper-alert intelligence is going to make sure that Operation Swords of Iron is not going to stop at anything whatsoever. And this also means that 2 big fronts are now completely open.
The West Bank strikes come after Israel conducted multiple raids in the region. arresting hundreds of Hamas workers and seizing massive cache of arms and ammunition aimed at attacking Israel. With Gaurav Sawant and Shiv Arur from Israel, Bureau Report, India Today.
Israel now is fighting this war against Hamas on three major fronts. Gaza, where Shiv and I are currently, the West Bank, and also Hezbollah, another Iranian proxy on its northern borders. And this war, Shiv, is only set to escalate.
It's only set to escalate. 2 weeks, as far as the Israel government is concerned, is absolutely nothing. They say, wait for the next phase. Gaurav and I will continue to report from the front lines, from the West Bank, and from the north. Thanks for watching this special broadcast right here on India Today from southern Israel.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a B&P Group company. From the rumbling Gaza frontline to the first broadcast from the West Bank,
India Today is reporting from Palestine, from the West Bank, and tension, the situation remains extremely tense.
from the exploding Israel-Hezbollah crossfire to the Viper's nest in Lebanon.
You can see tracers going.